Welcome to the Blytheway Mining Show on Core London TV. I'm Bonnie Hughes, Business Development Manager for Royal Haskoning Mining Division. I am joined today by Mark Childs. He is the CEO of Condor Gold, and they recently just listed on the TSX Venture. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
And very interesting that you listed on the TSX Venture. Like, I noticed some of your largest shareholders are Canadians, which I am too. So Ross Beatty, Jim Mellon as well. Well, World Bank is not Canadian. So what was your purpose of listing on the TSX?
Because on the TSX, you have about 70% of the market there is in oil and gas and mining. And there are 5 companies listed on the TSX and the TSXV that are operating in Nicaragua. So we find that where we're operating, the natural home for them is actually Canada.
Yes, that would make sense for sure. Now, I noticed that you're moving into your final stages of permitting on the La India Project.
Yes.
So where are you in that with that?
We've had a delay on permits, but we've been trying to permit it for about 18 months. I've just actually come back in last week from Nicaragua. I've had some excellent meetings over the last 2 months. Met the Minister of Energy and Mines, met the President's son, met the Governor of Leon, met the local mayor, met the local priest, met the head of the Inward Investment Ministry, met the Director General of the Department of Mines. So there's been more meetings 2 weeks ago than in the previous 2 years in terms of meeting the key people for permitting. So looks like we made a breakthrough locally.
Well, I mean, permitting is such a process in any country in the world. I mean, even in Canada, it can be a process, but it must give you some confidence that you have B2 Gold, producing mines, and a lot of producing mines in Nicaragua.
Yes. Well, gold's the 3rd biggest export, and Nicaragua is the poorest country in South America. So they've identified using mining and gold in particular to alleviate the poverty. They need the taxes and the revenues. The government have always said they want the mine there. And this is the biggest gold deposit by a long way. It's 2.3 million ounces, and we've got reserves in there of 675, which we can comfortably double. The red flag for us in the delay has been resettlement of 1,000 people. And we have been looking at our alternatives to doing the mine without any resettlement. And that's what we've been talking about the government with. And that's been very, very positively received. And that's why I think we'll get a breakthrough on the permits.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I mean, I know in Canada, Cisco Mining had to move a whole town. So
right.
Resettlement of 1,000 people is not really that intense.
Yes, that was a lot bigger, one of the biggest in Canada, I think.
That's right. And so besides the permitting, what stage is the La India project at right now?
Well, we've got the reserves. We've got 2.3 million ounces as the headline figure. Where we're trying to add value is on 3 ways. Permit the base case, 100,000 ounces per annum from an single open pit. Take the core area of 3 vein sets and increase that from 2.1 to 3 million ounces. And then try and add that into the mine plan, so adding feeder pits and underground in. And thirdly, proving it's a major district, and we think we've got 5 million ounces there, so there are 3 value adders.
Oh, well, that's excellent. And so are you progressing with a definitive feasibility study, or?
Well, we said to the government, look, that's going to cost us $5-6 million. Give us the permits and we'll go to bankable or definitive feasibility study. But there's no point me, spending money on infill drilling and $1 million on architect's plans for the processing plant until you've given a green light.
Yes, that totally makes sense for you and for the shareholders.
Right.
And so are you doing any more exploration right now in the meantime on the project?
Well, we put in last year, with Ross Beatty's money, which he put 2 lots of money in, he's the biggest shareholder, as you say, and he came in 2 years ago. He said, well, we want to see if there's a district. So the way we've done that is we've completed soil geochemistry on the district. We've then done a lot of detailed geological mapping on the district. We've done some rock chip sampling. We've done trenching. We've done a new structural geological model. And we put in about 8,500 metres of drilling in the last 12 months. So we've pushed the envelope. It's an interdisciplined approach of about 6 different things to prove you've got 5 million there. And we've been getting on with showing that upside, if you like, while we've been waiting for permits. So while we've been stuck on permits, we haven't been doing nothing. We've been drilling and making all this really good progress. The market has ignored that because it's obsessed, I think incorrectly, with permits, because we'll get permitted, but it's a micro where your permits mentality. But we've got a major gold district, and I think, so what we decided to do on the drilling is conserve the cash, stop drilling. We had great drill results last year, 3.5 meters at 28 grams. The shares didn't do anything because the mentality is where your permits. So we're not going to do any more drilling at the moment.
Well, you potentially could get a re-rating once the permitting has come through.
I think we'll double the share price. I mean, the share price at the moment is, unfortunately, it's priced for there not being a mine, and understandably, I suppose if I wasn't sitting knowing what I know, having just met them, 8 people I just quoted I met 10 days ago in that week out there, you might be thinking, well, what's the government up to? Does it want to grab 10% of the project, or what's going on? But they don't. They tell me they want the mine, and I've met all the ministers and everything, and we'll get permits. But it is frustrating at a personal level. It's deeply frustrating that they haven't already granted the permits. But I hope they'll do so. I'd like to say the near future, but it's looking better now than it has at any time in the past 2 years.
Well, I think in this day and age, a lot of the governments are very concerned with community relations because of what has happened in so many other countries, especially Peru. So it just sounds like they're being extra cautious due to the community and what will happen with them.
And that's right. And we had the IFC as a 7.5% shareholder. They went in to go and see the ministry and the politicians on an inspection they did on the project last year. And they were pretty much told, you'll get the permits after the elections. So they had elections last November. Going into elections, politicians get very sensitive when it comes to things like resettling and votes and uncertainty. And they like the political noise, as they call it, to be low. And that's actually, in a way, what's happened. So we had the first meeting with the minister in early December, we had another one 10 days ago. And so every reason to think that we're on the right track.
It sounds like you're on the right track. And certainly, I mean, there's been places in the United States where it's taken forever to get permitting on certain areas. So it's not an unusual process for sure.
Well, I think the average time to get a mine permitted is 2.5 years globally now. Because of all the governments are much more sensitive. Every village in the middle of nowhere still has access to the internet somehow. People are just more aware of what they're entitled to. The anti-mining brigades have upped their game, generally speaking. So CEOs face greater challenges, and you have to get a social license to operate from the entire community, not just the government. And we've been massively working on that. We've got 20 people in our social team at the moment. We've, for example, just engaged an elderly group on a committee. We've engaged a pro-mining group. We've got a water group. And all these groups we empower, and we give that committee money to go and spend in the local committee. So the elderly group of 6 people, we gave them a pot of money, and they said, oh, well, we don't give cash. And they said, right, well, what do you need? And they had a meeting, and they decided that they would, they wanted to use the money to check every elderly's ID card. And that was very important for them. And they went around 96 elderly people, and 26 didn't have ID cards. They'd all, because they're too old and they hadn't re-registered and they'd expired. So we helped them with that. And that's all part of winning the hearts and minds. And we've done that with about 4 different social stakeholder groups. And so there's a big effort to have a social license.
Oh, well, that's absolutely essential in moving forward. And if you potentially do have a very large mining district, as you know, the majors have declining production, and what is of interest to them is an area where they have a large mining district, because, you know, they don't usually want to go somewhere small. So that's potentially very exciting.
Well, to try and, what is the scale of La India Project? We have... it's an epithermal vein district, and what the big boys look for and what big deposits are very complex areas geologically. And this is certainly that. There are two major regional faults running north-northwest, south-southeast of the project, and a down-thrown block to the south. And we have a total of 106 kilometres of gold veins on the surface. Now, you probably have that again that doesn't, or a number again, that don't reach the surface due to the pressures and the fluids not getting to the surface. But it is one of the bigger gold districts, I'm told by independent geologists, that they visited. Now, you just need that's not all economic, so let's not get carried away, but you just need a 10-20% of it to be economic, and these things can run for 30 years. So we think we're onto something special. It also produced over 500,000 ounces at 13 grams in the 40s and 50s, so super high grade, and it's got the economics under around $700 an ounce. So we're excited about the project potential, but we always have been. We've just got bogged down in this permitting issue. But many of the majors and other people, they look through permitting. The trade understands it's a hassle and it takes time. And when they come into a country, they're in there for, not smash and grab, like punters in the stock market. They're there going to operate for the next 20 to 30 years, and that's what they've got to get comfortable with.
Well, the initial capex for mining is usually quite large, so to get your payback, you need to be in production for a certain amount of time. Thank you so much for joining us, Mark, and I look forward to hearing your news on your permitting and the next time you come in. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Blytheway Mining Show on Core London TV. Do your research, do your homework, minimize your losses, and maximize your returns. Thank you.